this bill. It's about time, and I'm thrilled that this is going to be happening. Like many of you, I know that you've been part of boards for nonprofits that are registered societies. I know I've worked for a number of registered societies over the years, and I know it's a lot of work, actually, to submit your objectives of your society, your annual returns, your audits, all of the things. And I think that most of us take it very, very seriously about outlining, as we register, outlining the importance of the work that we do and the benefit that it has to our community. And that's really key about nonprofits, is the benefit. And so the fact that this member has brought forward something that will address this very issue is fantastic. And it's about time, and I know great nonprofits all around Alberta are standing up and applauding this. So thank you for that. So I've heard the members quite a few from across the way a few times now highlight the fact that they don't think this is a partisan issue. I agree with them. I don't think this is a partisan issue at all. I think it's a human issue, absolutely. But how you govern yourself is certainly a partisan issue. And I know, I can speak for the people on this side, is that we don't make a habit of going onto hate-filled, lie-filled sites like Rebel to be interviewed or to be supported, and then turn around and come into this place and say, yay, we're gonna do something to clamp down on these hate groups. Let me remind you a little bit about the hate that particular organization spews. And let's be honest with ourselves. I think we're in denial a little bit in Alberta and Canada that this isn't a big problem here. It's not as big a problem as it is south of the border, but it's getting worse. It's getting worse all the time, and it's getting worse for a reason. When you have hate-spewing sites like Rebel doing things, hiring people that will use their platform to talk about things that they hate about Jews, or to go stand and record the tragic events at Charlottesville. And that's just touching the surface. I mean, there are so many hateful things that go on there that I can't even begin to touch on them all. They legitimize hate. They use it. People call it clickbait. That's what it is. It's clickbait. And so if you associate with groups like that, you're encouraging them, and you're saying that that's okay. Sure, maybe they didn't spew hateful facts or lies while you were being interviewed that day, or while maybe you didn't retweet something particularly hateful, but you're supporting it. And so it becomes a partisan issue when you, as a partisan person, choose to support that kind of work. If you didn't read this article, there was a really great article written, and it was Vice, that published the article in August of 2017, which I will table tomorrow. And it talks about their very long, I think it was an 8-month-long study on hate groups and the rich history of hate in Alberta, but also some of the growing hate. And some of the things they talked about, they reminded us about what were some recent rallies in Edmonton. I think in 2012, there was a particularly vile rally here in Edmonton in Churchill Square. And again, people are starting to focus on immigration, of course, spreading lies and misinformation about immigration and anti-Islamophobia. And so I heard a member from over there talk about how great their leader was at bringing us together. Well, I can think of a lot of examples where, that really wasn't the case. I remember comments made by him in the House of Commons where he wanted an English-to-English translation from somebody who clearly English wasn't their first language. That wasn't just a slip-up. He also worked pretty hard after the courts ruled otherwise to prevent women, Muslim women, from wearing head coverings at citizenship ceremonies. Why? Ask yourselves why. That doesn't seem like a uniting activity for me. Yeah. Anyway, more recently, I remember the federal government was trying to pass some anti-Islamic, or prevention of anti-Islamic activity after the mass shooting in Quebec City. And although we were not there, we were not debating that federal movement or those decisions, The stuff that was coming out of Alberta was disgusting. The stuff that was coming out of rebel media, who the opposition support by participating in their activities, that stuff was awful and it was vile. And that's the kind of stuff that incites hatred. The other kind of stuff that incites hatred is promoting these fallacies and these lies about immigration, about religion that are not yours, about rights. You know, we heard earlier today somebody talking about the need to stand up for property rights, which I agree with. We're all here to stand up for everybody's rights. Yet they turned around and walked out when faced with an opportunity to protect women's rights. That's a form of hatred. When you have innocent women trying to get some health care and exercise control over their own bodies, and they're faced with this wall of hate, of lies and misleading photographs. That's not good. That is not good at all. And I do think that we're in denial about the growing hatred. And all of us as leaders in our communities and as elected officials, we absolutely have the right, or we have the responsibility to do everything we can to counter that, to not incite hatred. I wanted to go back to a little bit, and clearly folks across are not looking up too much because we're talking about rebel, but I would like to remind the House just how vile some of the things that they've said and published are. One of the people that they hired went to Israel and published information about why they hate Jews. They actually blamed Jews for the Holodomor. I don't even understand that. They literally gave and shared their platform with the KKK Grand Wizard, David Duke. Can't believe I'd ever say his name in this place, but they did. And white nationalist Richard Spencer. Why on earth would you support an organization that promotes that kind of hate and then come to this place and then say that you support legislation that aims to check the activities of groups trying to seek society status in this province when you are guilty of associating with these groups that promote violence and hatred and misinformation? I'll tell you, I made, I think it was last year, when very much in the news people were talking about Omar Khadr. And the federal government, actually it was the Supreme Court of Canada, had ruled that the government, or they had obtained evidence during oppressive circumstances, and which led to some other things, and the government of Canada negotiated a settlement. I wasn't saying that I agreed, I was happy, I was neutral on that point. What I was saying is that it's important to respect the Supreme Court of Canada, and that was it. And instantly, I was flooded by the rebel crew with these horrible, nasty messages. I don't know how they have meme makers that are so fast it made my head spin. And I had a picture of myself with traitor over it or a bullet hole in my head. And this is the kind of stuff that incites hatred.
Shame.
I won't even get into all of the history of this case because it's not my case. I'm not a lawyer. But I do trust the Supreme Court of Canada. And so I just want to say, again, I am incredibly thankful to the member for bringing forward this bill. It's important, and a few people have asked, why wasn't this done earlier? This should have been done a long time ago. And we say that a lot these days, but it should have been done a long time ago. So you can propose amendments to try to make it better like what normally happens. You can say it's not partisan, but it is. And you can do everything you can in your personal power in your communities and in this place to say that's not okay. So when you go to your own convention and you have people attacking Indigenous people for taxes, you can stand up and say that's hate. When you talk about people that are different from you, that practice different religions, and you hear them say things like that, you can say that's wrong. You can point out that the garbage that is spewed by rebel is wrong. And you can choose to distance yourself, or you can just vote for this and say, you know, you're good. So I would encourage everybody in this House to support this bill. And again, I thank you very much for your work. Thank you.